Good morning. This is the time and place for the Planning Hearing Officer meeting of December 11th, 2013. My name is Vilia Zamaitaitis, and I will be conducting the hearing. We have two cases on today's agenda, that is, and relevant exhibits are posted on the panels directly behind me. The hearing will proceed as follows. The project will be read. There will be a brief description. The applicant will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and will be able to go ahead and present the case. Others in the audience who wish to speak will then be asked to come forward, stating both name and address, and you will have 3 minutes in terms of your presentation. The applicant will then be given the opportunity to make closing comments and, if desired, in response to the testimony given by the speakers. And the hearing will be closed and the case taken under submission for a decision to be rendered. If evidence presented in the application and at the public hearing meets the criteria described in the findings for the case, the planning officer can either approve or impose conditions for approval on the case in question. If findings of fact are not evident, then the request has to be denied. Notification of this hearing was accomplished by the use of public notices, which were mailed to all property owners and occupants within 500 feet of the subject property, physically posted on the site in question, and placed in the local newspaper. After the hearing, the decision will be prepared in writing and will be in the form of a letter sent to the applicant and to all persons who responded to the public notice, either by speaking at the hearing or by submitting written responses and have provided their name and address. Under the appeals provision of our municipal code, the decision may be appealed to the Planning Commission within 15 days of the decision date, and the notice of appeal shall be filed with the Building and Safety Division. If you wish to speak, please write your name and address on one of the speaker cards which have been provided at the front door and submit it to our planning staff. I would also like to inform everyone that the official proceedings of the Planning Hearing Officer's hearing are recorded on DVD as part of the public record. Okay, the first case on today's agenda is a parking reduction permit, case number PPRP 1324113. The project is located at 515 South Glendale Avenue, and the case planner is Ms. Milka Toledo. Please, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Zimatitis. This case is located at 515 South Glendale. It is a parking reduction. It may seem familiar because it was actually reviewed last year in November of 2012, and it was denied, and from there it was appealed to the Planning Commission. Ultimately, the Planning Commission did sustain the Planning Hearing Officer's decision. If I recall, you coincidentally were the hearing officer originally, and they sustained the decision to deny it. At that time, just to give you an idea, they were proposing an addition which included 2,326 square feet. That was the combination of the existing bakery plus the addition would have been 4,326 square feet. That included adding to the bakery and converting 2 out of the 3 units, the residential units, into as part of the bakery expansion. Today, however, they're coming in with a new application, and it's lower, and that's why I wanted to highlight the original request compared to today. So that I will segue into now what they are proposing today is, again, to expand the existing bakery. If you recall, there are 2 commercial uses at the front. If we look at the site plan, there is a flower shop, which will remain, and there is the bakery, Karina's Cake House, and then, again, we have residential units at the back. There are 3 residential, and they're proposing to only convert one of those residential units into, or as part of the commercial bakery expansion, and the 2 remaining, or there will be 2 remaining residential units at that location. They will not change. The existing residential parking will be converted to commercial as part of the bakery expansion. And as far as the addition to the bakery, they are going to add, I believe it was still the 501 square feet. Just bear with me 1 minute, as I would like to highlight that. So, as I stated, the proposal includes 501 square feet for the addition at the rear of the existing bakery, elimination and conversion of the 2 existing residential parking garages into floor area, and that would be approximately 655 square feet, and conversion of 1 dwelling unit into commercial floor area, that will be 435 square feet. So the total floor area for the bakery with the proposed additions will be 3,591 square feet. So we clearly see there is a reduction compared to the original 4,326 square foot addition total. The parking reduction that they are proposing today is that they are proposing 9 on-site parking spaces for the commercial uses and no residential parking for the remaining 2 residential units. As proposed, the project will result in a 6-space parking shortfall for the commercial uses and a 4-space shortfall for the 2 remaining residential units, which are required to be covered and enclosed. The site area is 11,370 square feet, and the total area for all commercial uses is 2,830 square feet. The flower shop is 830, and the existing bakery is 2,000 square feet. As far as their addition, based on the floor plan submitted, the applicant's goal is to expand the bakery for the need of more kitchen space. So they are not proposing to expand the actual retail area where the customers come in and that serving area. They're not proposing to change that. It's mainly for the need of getting in a new larger refrigerators and other storage for their food preparation area for their bakery use. So again, the retail component and customer service area is not proposed to be changed according to the floor plan submitted. Staff is today recommending approval for this project. And before I go into some of the findings, if you'd like me to go over them, I'd just like to highlight some of the site visits and what was observed by staff. There were several visits that were conducted, and one of them, for example, they're all mentioned in the staff report. 3 times is when staff went out. One of them being October 14th. No, excuse me, the 18th, in the late afternoon, about 4 p.m. Once on a Saturday, that was October 19th, at 5 p.m., and once on a Thursday, October 24th, at 12 p.m. So as you can see, there's been a variety of times, days, weekdays, midweek, and there's also been some mornings, which were not even mentioned in the report. In the past, staff, again, has performed midweek morning visits, and during most site visits, staff did observe that there was a parking turnover for both the on- and the off-site parking spaces. For example, the 3 site visits showed that either one or both front on-site spaces were occupied, but also there were 2 out of the 3 site visits where there was only 1 on-site parked vehicle directly at the front. And again, after going around the block, those vehicles had left, and then either new vehicles came in within a 5 to 10 minute time span, or those remain unoccupied. So clearly staff saw that there was available parking during those times, and there didn't seem to be an issue regarding major use of those parking spaces. The applicant's goal, according to their findings, is to have primarily their businesses preparation of cakes and being delivered. So either the customer picks it up, maybe a 15 to up to a 45-minute turnaround, so that they can pick up the cake and then put it in their vehicle or what have you, or being loaded by a vehicle truck and delivery truck. And these delivery trucks, my understanding is that they're contracted out, so they're not parked on site. And they will be there for, again, anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes total. So in terms of the findings, staff does believe that all the 4 findings can be made, and therefore staff does recommend approval for the project. If there are any questions, I am available to answer them.
Yes. Based on the current proposed figures of the 3,500, well, approximately 3,600 square foot bakery with the addition, the 830 square foot flower shop, and the 2 remaining units, what would be the total parking required according to today's code?
Is it if it was built new today?
If it was brand new, built today.
Okay, so considering, let me look, because I know I had that included in the report, so bear with me. Okay, so if constructed from the ground up today with no nonconforming parking rights, the project would require a total of 22 spaces. That would be 18 for the commercial uses plus 4 covered and enclosed parking spaces for the 2 remaining residential units. The proposed parking deficiency results in a 13-space shortfall, and that would be, again, the 22 required spaces minus the 9 for the entire site compared to the same project if built today on a vacant lot.
Okay. So currently they're proposing 9 spaces.
Correct.
All of these 9 spaces would be solely for the commercial use. They're not providing any parking on site for the 2 remaining residential units.
Correct.
And they are obviously grandfathered in, or there are legal nonconforming rights
Yes, this
to parking.
project definitely has legal nonconforming rights, again, because, for example, just by looking at the residential, if there's 3 units and you only have 2 one-car garages, that clearly is nonconforming, because under today's code, they would require 2 covered and enclosed parking spaces that meet for each unit. So they would need 6 under today's code, just for the residential alone.
Okay, and right now, based on the legal nonconforming rights and the proposed expansion, they're requesting a parking reduction for 6 parking spaces.
Correct. That would, well, that's just for the commercial. For the, it would result in a 6 parking space shortfall just for the commercial.
commercial.
And then well, there would be 2 remaining units, so a 4-space shortfall just for the residential.
Just
so
for
that
the
would be a
residential.
total of 10.
Okay. And this parking reduction is triggered, just for clarification, because they are actually adding to
The
the
bakery.
existing legal nonconforming situation in terms of the commercial uses, and then modifying the existing residential unit to convert that into a commercial space.
Right.
That's triggering
Right.
the parking reduction. Okay, so with all that information on the table, I would like to invite the applicant to come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and then also give your presentation and include the reasons why you believe all 4 findings can be made to support the project.
Good morning. Karan Nazarian with Domus Design, 109 East Harvard Street, Unit 306 in Glendale. The proposed, the request of the parking reduction, as it has been presented by Milka, it's for the commercial addition to existing bakery, and we are not adding any retail space to the existing existing bakery. Just looking to the floor plans, it's for the storage or dry goods storage or refrigerated storage. We have a that 501 square feet addition, new addition, if you check, if it's only for the walk-in cooler and walk-in freezer addition. So that doesn't trigger any additional, traffic that triggers to more parking spaces. And on the presentation only I have to mention that two covered parking garages for the residential unit that has been mentioned, it's converting to commercial use. Part of that is not true because one of the, looking to the floor plan, the garages, even they are non-conforming situation because the garage width and the depth doesn't comply with the code. And we are converting one of the garages to two parking spaces, not a floor area to bakery. If you check the, just one of the garages that the second garage, it's converted to the storage area because these bakery businesses, they need a lot of the storage spaces, for the dry goods and the refrigerated storage for the prepared items. And the parking shortage, it's the residential units, I know that is not a, given or it won't be forever. Maybe, that is the discussion. The one of the units is occupied by the father of the landlord, which is the business owners, which he is a senior citizen, he doesn't drive. And he, as even mentioned in the staff report, these garages, it's not used for the garage because it's non-conforming situation. It's only 12.5 feet depth, so they can park there. By doing this, I think by converting that one garage, non-conforming small garages to two parking spaces, for me that is a improvement in the parking situation in the general. I'm not talking about the residential or commercial, but in general it's an improvement on the parking situation. And as it has been mentioned, and I do have a picture of interior of the business, looking to the layout and the situation of the retail space. It's I can tell 80% of the products are cakes. As the name of the business it mentions, it says Karina's Cake House. This business is famous for for the cakes, and the cakes, it's mostly, it has been because this cake they will prepare for the special occasions, weddings, birthdays, or whatever, which it will be delivered by a contract delivery van, which they don't park here. There, even that 45 minutes, it's the most, maybe once or twice a year, that it's very busy day. I don't know, it's a New Year Eve or Christmas that they have a lot of delivery. The van will stop there for 45 minutes. If not, usually 20 minutes, 25 minutes stop, just they load the 4 or 5 cakes and they deliver that. And the remaining in the store, if you see, it's mostly cake, which the customers, they enter and they pick just one piece of cake and they go. Even when I go there to buy a cake, it doesn't take more than 5 to 7 minutes. I walk in the reach-in refrigerator, I pick the item that I want, I go to cashier to pay. That it takes 5 to 7 minutes for me. If we go, averaging, I think 10 to 15 minutes is the most, the turnovers for the parking spaces. And the square footage was by mentioning that the parking space, which in the staff report, it's calling for a conversion to a commercial kitchen. If I go by the exact numbers, the total square footage of the bakery, it will be 3,296 square feet, because I'm deducting that parking is in a garage converted to parking space. So the total, I'm coming with 3,296 square feet. And this site, checking on the walk score, which it gives a real good statistic of the area and the traffic and the foot traffic. This area has a walk score 91. And on this walk score site, it says 515 South Glendale Avenue has a walk score of 91 out of 100. This address is Walker's Paradise, since they call it walking. They are calling the Walker's Paradise because it's a high density residential area, and mostly people they walk to these shops, even Karina's Cake or the surrounding other businesses. This area has a walk score 91, which is helpful, for this parking reduction. And it has been submitted a parking study by a professional, and on the parking study it's mentioned that always there's a parking available through the 9 parking, right now 7 parking spaces on site, and the on-street parking spaces which has been numbered on the site plan. Most of them, at least 2 or 3 of them it's available on two of on-street parking spaces, and mostly the on-site parking spaces, 3 of them it's available. Mostly the people they park in the on-site, the parking number 1 and 2 in the front of the business, that is highly occupied. People they prefer to park there instead of entering in the back of the building. And beside of that, a survey it has been conducted on the site, which it's included in the staff report, which by hourly basis, the parking, which parking it's occupied, which is available. By going to that chart, you will see that always in any given hour during the day, parking spaces are available. It's never fully parked spaces, which these charts are included in the staff report. And I did review the comments received from the departments, which I agree with most of them. The only item that I didn't understood is from the neighborhood service, which they have concern about the landscaping in the front of the property. But right now, the property has no landscaping. By this improvement, I am adding the required that 5% parking space for the parking lot, on-site parking lot, and I am adding, as it's required by the code, in the front of the property, just a small strip of the landscaping I'm adding, that is separation of the walk and the driveway, which by looking to comment of the neighborhood services, maybe it will solve a little bit that concern. And the other departments, the building department, water and power, everything, I agree with that. There is no comment on that. And by this, I conclude my presentation. If you have any question, I will be happy to answer.
Actually do, and just for clarification purposes. So this area that you're adding between the 2 existing buildings?
Yes.
This would be the existing bakery right here.
Yes.
This is the existing 3-unit apartment building plus.
No, that on the ground floor, we do have 1 unit.
We have your 1 unit and 2 unit up above.
Up above.
So this new addition is the walk-in cooler and the walk-in freezer. Okay.
Yeah.
Then you're converting the 2 parking garages, portion of which becomes parking. Then you are converting the garage here and the single unit.
Single unit.
But this entire space becomes working space,
Working
correct?
space, yes.
So for preparation of cakes, so this would be storage.
Storage.
This would be all for production.
And that small area, it's again storage, dry goods
I see
storage.
storage.
Yeah, that area.
Then employee.
Yes.
And the 2 units up above have access with the stairs.
Yes.
Okay.
Right now they have stairs, front and the back stairs. Even the one exit is required. They have two stairways from, second floor.
Okay. And then you have the existing flower shop retail store.
It remains as it is.
Do you know if the majority of their customers are walk-in and or
No, they
delivery?
have the majority. It's again delivery because they do delivery for the funerals, they do delivery for the weddings, but they do have walk-in customers too. But even they don't have really real peak hours, and the peak hours often it's mostly in the mornings or early afternoons, 4, 5 o'clock, which it's not overlap with let's say the peak hour of the bakery.
Mm-hmm. But basically the employees or employee of the retail flower shop and their customers would also be using these spaces,
Yes,
correct?
that an on-site parking space that we are calling for commercial use, it's used by the boat.
Okay.
Both
And then you made special note that the figures are not correct, that it's a 3,200 square foot overall.
Yes, just
Space.
because of that two parking spaces, existing one car garage, on the staff report considered to convert to floor area, which it is not. And the one garage, it's converted to two parking spaces, and the other one, it's converted to floor area.
You've prepared these plans, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay, and the plans here show that the total retail space is 4,400 square feet. So this would be the flower shop, the bakery, the addition, the changes of use
Addition.
the total would be 4,400 square feet. So if you
Let
minus,
me-
800 some from the
3296
flower
plus
shop,
850.
the 3,200 doesn't. I just want to clarify that because that's when it comes to parking, that's a big distinction in terms of.
As I presented the case right now, I calculated it's 3296, it's the bakery, and 850, it's 830, it's the flower shop. It comes for the 100 something, but I can verify that later
Okay.
if you want. I can give it to you.
Because based on a parking reduction permit, you're essentially calculating the parking based on the square footage of the uses on site, and
Just yesterday,
That distinction.
getting, reading this staff report, when I came to the point that it's two garages converted to floor area, I noticed that area. I just deducted that area, the parking area, from the total number that the Milka was giving us.
because it looks like, well, and I'm not going to go through all the details, but it looks like you do have the plans labeled with the square footages, and I'm assuming that the 4,400 square foot overall total of retail space would be correct. So, but that
Can
That
you
will just-
one moment just check it quickly for you?
Sure. Actually, and during that time, I'm going to ask, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? I have no other speaker cards other than for the applicant. So no one would like to come and speak on project.
44, yeah, that is correct.
Pardon?
That the number is correct. 44.
So there is the total overall retail,
Total overall retail.
4,480 square feet of retail on site.
Yes.
And then you are requesting a parking reduction for 6 spaces for the commercial, 4 enclosed spaces for the residential, remaining 2 units, and you're providing 9 spaces on site.
11, 12. The retail, it's 4,480, 4 per thousand. 4 per thousand, it will give me 18 parking spaces, plus 4 for the residential. But we are, yeah.
Right, and the request right now for the parking reduction is 9 spaces on site, solely for the commercial, no spaces for the residential. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, with that said, and since there are no other speaker cards, I'm going to close the case. take the matter under submission and render a decision. So
One more thing, just the owner brought the, do you have the signatures? Okay. During these last 2 weeks, the customers and the neighbors, they walked in the, business and they signed a petition which they never had a parking issue on this.
all right, well, thank you. Support. If you don't mind giving it to the case planner, we'd appreciate it. All right, well, thank you so much. The case is now taken under submission. All right, we have one more case on today's agenda. The last item is a conditional use permit, case number PCUP 1317214. The project address is 2920 Greenwich Road. The applicant is Edward Hagobian, and the case planner, again, is Milka Toledo. So, Ms. Toledo, if you don't mind giving us a presentation regarding the project.
Yes, as you mentioned, this project is located at 2920 Greenwich Road. It is located in the Chevy Chase hillside area. The project proposal is to construct a new 3,028 square foot, 3-story, single-family house with an attached 2-car garage on a vacant lot, which is 10,903 square feet. The lot does have an average current slope of 70%, so obviously it is exceeding the 50%, which is basically the threshold that requires a CUP. So anything over 50% requires a CUP. And they are grading more than 1,500 cubic yards, specifically 2,530 cubic yards, and that includes cut and fill. So again, both these items, the fact that the average current slope is more than 50%, the fact that they are grading more than 1,500 cubic yards does trigger a conditional use permit. And in addition, it did have environmental review. An actual environmental document was prepared, and the mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the project, initial study as well. The proposed MND was circulated for a 20-day public review period. That was from November 7th, 2013 to November 27th, 2013. Staff did not receive any comments regarding the environmental. So I just want that to be noted in the record. Currently, a design review application would be required, again, but that's pending the outcome of the decision of this conditional use permit. So in the future, it will be required if the conditional use permit is approved. Staff is recommending approval today with conditions. The project is located in the R1R zone. The project site, like I said, is currently vacant. It does have an irregular shape, and what's unique about this property is not only it's in the hillside, but it has an interesting sloping valley along the front within the 15-foot setback. So what the applicant is proposing to do is they are proposing to, as much as possible, build, especially the driveway in that area where the garage will be, the house closer to the front, a minimum of 15 feet back from the front property line, to take advantage of that valley specifically for the driveway, to minimize in that area grading. We could see that in the topo map. However, the site does have hillside definitely at the front. So as you approach Greenwich, as you approach the site from the east, you will notice, and the story poles are actually up in place, and they've been up in place for quite some time now. You will notice that there are story poles up on the hillside itself, so they are proposing to grade in that area as well as part of their proposal, because the house will be extending from east to west. So it's going to take up basically that entire width almost, with the limitation that, with the exception that they obviously are complying with the 10-foot minimum interior setbacks for both the east and the west interior setbacks. Now, having said that, they are also complying with the minimum requirement as it relates to the minimum open space requirement, which they have to have for the hillside 40%. So they are proposing 42% open space. There are a couple oak trees on the property. Specifically, there's one At the front, that's included in the tree report that was prepared by an arborist and reviewed also by our city arborist as well, where they're concluding that the two trees that are protected, which are within very close proximity to the house, they will not be significantly compromised as long as the mitigation measures are complied with. They are proposing to have those trees remain. They will be protected. They are taking measures to protect the roots of the trees. One of the trees will eventually have to have some pruning because the canopy would encroach, or some branches would encroach into the driveway area, and it overhangs a bit. So that would be the extent, based on the report, of changes being made to the protected trees. But again, they are proposing to keep them and protect them. As far as the neighborhood, in terms of zoning and uses in the area, this area is developed with single-family homes. However, there's also open space at the back along the south side is actually ROS, and there are the R1R zoned properties to the east, to the west, and across the street. And coincidentally, those properties are vacant. There are properties along the south side of Greenwich stepping down from the street front, and as you go around the bend, there are properties on the south side, on the north side, and again, they go around the curve until there's a cul-de-sac at the end of the street. And you'll see that mainly the development's taking place, existing development on the north side of the street. And as far as where the property is located, to the right of it, or in this case it would be to the east, it is vacant. However, across from that it is developed with single-family development, comprising a variety of styles, but I won't go into design. Would you like me to go into the findings that are mentioned in the report?
Please, if you don't mind going into the findings as well as putting up the aerial image on the screen and
Okay.
just pointing out whichever you'd like to
Do
do
you mind
first.
doing it while I go into the
So-
staff report? Thank you. I task
Of
that
course. No,
read
that's
and
quite all right.
type at the same time. As far as the draft findings that staff has prepared as it relates to how the residents will be consistent with the various elements and objectives of the general plan. The subject site designation is low density residential, corresponding to the R1R classification. The land use designation zoning are intended to preserve and protect low density residential and to promote the public health, safety, and welfare of the community. So within this zone, the preservation of the open space, physical features are also emphasized. The residence will be located towards the front portion of the 10,903 square foot property. It will be set back 15 feet from the front property line along Greenwich Road. The project is proposed to be located towards the lower elevations and built into the natural slope. The site will preserve 42% of the lot as ungraded. And in terms of circulation element, the Greenwich Road is classified as a local street, which provides primary access to, or the primary function of this local street is to provide access to adjacent properties. In terms of the oak trees, as I mentioned earlier, they are proposing to comply with open space and conservation element because they do not identify this site as being a site for park or open space use. They are proposing to protect the oak trees on and within 20 feet of the site, and therefore the project is consistent with this element. I'd like to go into finding number 2, how the project or the single-family house will not be detrimental to the public welfare or safety of the environment. Construction of the proposed residence will involve, again, the 2,530 cubic yards of grading, and that is combined cut and fill. The rear portions of the front and the sides of the lot, that's 4,525 square feet, will remain untouched. The approval of the CUP would not impact surrounding uses, the character of the neighborhood. Some of the existing homes were constructed on manufactured pads, and construction of this method today is discouraged. the proposed residence will be built in the natural slope of the lot, with several levels being stepped back to address the site's topography. They did submit a geotechnical engineering report or investigation report prepared by engineering consultants and later confirmed by another consultant as well, where they found that the project development of the property is feasible from a geotechnical engineering standpoint, provided that they adhere to the recommendations of the report. And that's included in the file if for public review. Also, the applicant has met with our engineering staff to address preliminary engineering issues as it relates to drainage and other infrastructure issues as well. So, again, the applicant has been in contact with them, and I know that they've made some preliminary changes to the plans compared to the original that were submitted to address those concerns as well. But, again, they will go through the plan check process ultimately and further make, I'm assuming, more changes as required by the engineering section and other divisions in the city. Item number 3, or finding number 3, how it will not adversely affect or conflict with the adjacent uses or impede the normal development of the surrounding property. This site, again, the site and surrounding area are zoned for low density and very low density single-family housing and are developed as such. The neighborhood is almost fully developed, and therefore the project will not impact the normal development of the surrounding property. Proposed single-family house is consistent with the surrounding use and will not impede the redevelopment of nearby homes. Lastly, regarding adequate public and private facilities and landscape and traffic circulation measures that will be provided for the single-family resident. As stated, the area is an established community for many years, so there are existing utilities in the area. Greenwich Road is a local street designed to carry residentially generated traffic. It is not expected that the demand for utilities impact of traffic circulation in the area will be elevated to any significant degree from the existing conditions. And there are additional discretionary, there are additional findings related to hillside development that are included in your report as well. A lot of them, again, reiterate what I've already mentioned in my presentation, so I'm not going to go over them unless you would like me to do so.
No, and those, just for the audience, those additional findings would be consistency with the hillside design guidelines and to minimize any additional grading for hillside development. Is that correct, Ms. Toledo?
Correct.
Okay, so, no, that...
And lastly, I've included recommended conditions of approval, which includes also comments made by other city sections. There were really, that I noted, none particularly that stand out related to the proposed design. So with that, I will conclude my presentation.
Okay. Did you receive any telephone calls or any emails or letters regarding the particular project?
If I recall, I did receive a phone call. I don't recall the name. It was an interested party, was inquiring about the development, did not express, if I recall, any specific comments, whether in favor or in opposition. I did, however, receive recently a letter from a neighbor or someone a resident in the area. I don't have the address handy, but she is expressing that they are in opposition.
And the letter is in the...
It's in the file.
Oh, okay. Right. Thank you so much. I'd like to call Mr. Edward Hagopian, the applicant for the project. Just one second.
Okay. Good morning, William. My name is Edward Hagopian, and my address is 220 South Kenwood Street, Suite 210, Glendale 91205. I'm the architect of this project. I was expecting that I have to go through these findings, but with the explanation of Milka, I don't know if I have to go through these findings because it will be the same comment, same conversation. So there's not much for me to add except that few more little things that the owner's husband and wife both work for aeronautics, and they have transferred from Seattle to Southern California. So they bought this lot to live in that house temporarily, that they are living in a rented house. Hopefully, if this is approved, then they will move onto in this lot, in this property, in this house. Other than that, we talked to the engineering department, and they said once in a while some debris, rocks come down from that steep hill that we have, and they require us to add the design a slough wall in front of the property, which will do it. Other than that, the style of the house, as you can see, it's a contemporary design, which recently, with the different design review boards, apparently it is considered to be more favorable style for hillside situation because of its flexibility. And this will be a very high quality construction. Of course, we will have all the amenities, all the requirements of the existing code, which is the greenhouse code, green construction code, and for the fire department, we will have the fire sprinklers. Other than that, well, as you know, we meet all the zoning standards: landscaping percentage, lot coverage, ungraded area, floor area ratio, height, setbacks, all of those meet the existing current code. In the front of the garage, we have enough space just in case if they have guests to park in that temporarily for a few hours, because Greenwich Road is not a very wide road, it's narrow. This is a very unique lot that I have designed so many houses in Hillside, that this one is unique because of the shape of the slopes. So I think I have been able to accomplish something that will be a good addition to the neighborhood. Other than that, I don't have much to say. Oak trees are being reserved, so that's another positive thing, and we will add more landscaping. And since there's nobody is living there, by building this house, it will be under control with the new engineered drainage, and landscaping will have an irrigation system. So hopefully this will be an upgrade condition to the existing condition of the house. That's all I can say. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Yes, if you don't mind, I'd like to call you up to the panels to explain the background or your thought process behind the site planning for this project.
Okay, the lowest portion of, excuse me, the highest.
If you don't mind speaking up as well, because we have to.
Highest location of this property, this street is towards this direction, so that's where we enter to the property to park in the garage, because that high location helps us to achieve higher location to reduce as much as possible the grading. Then we have the house is designed to sit in front of the property, and I hope you have the section here that I don't see the section. Yeah, as you can see inside the elevation, it tears back from the front of the property, going back to the rear of the property. Then we have this retaining wall on the back, which is creating a kind of backyard in the back of the house. The rest will remain ungraded. Here and here and here. The upper level will get some light from this backyard here or from the front.
Okay,
Other than
and
that,
the site plan above you, the colored site plan?
this one?
Yes. The area in sort of a tan color, a brown color, would be the building footprint, is that correct?
This is the footprint of the house. This is the backyard, driveway, stairs, and fire department access to the back of the house.
Okay. In the rear yard, there's quite a bit of grading because you are proposing a pool, a spa, based on the landscape plans, is that correct?
It's a small,
correct?
small lap pool. It's not a big, big, wide or long pool. And this is the sitting area for having a barbecue. And this pool is not very deep, it's not very wide, it's not very long, a small one, yes.
Approximately how many square feet would you consider that rear yard?
I don't have that number.
Between 500, 1,000?
This area
2,000?
should be probably, I would say, about plus minus 1,000 square foot.
And in your preparation for this project, I know architects go through multiple conceptual plans. Would you mind sharing a few of the conceptual plans that you came up with and why those were put aside?
Having designed many houses in the hillside areas, my experience is that sometimes the zoning codes and requirements of the limited height for retaining walls, setbacks, not encroaching into the front with higher than 18 inches structures, things like that. A portion of it is dictated by the code, by the existing contours and condition of the property. So no matter what we do, eventually we'll end up the garage to be in this location. And that chain reaction dictates us to start from that point. Okay, here is the garage. Now, from the garage, we have to have an exit door beside the front door. That door has to lead us to somewhere that we can go up or we can exit. That dictates us where to put the stairs, which is here. Then from the stairs, since we have to have the upper levels to tier back, we have to design it in a way that structurally works out and it sits right in the right location, and gradually it goes back, so it dictates us where the backyard will be, where the retaining wall will be. Other than that, regarding the style of the house, that can be different styles, let's say modern, Spanish, contemporary, or ranch or what. Since, let's say for example, if we choose the Spanish style, an additional roof that we put that on top of the house, it gives more height. So contemporary has an advantage that does not have that kind of additional heights.
Thank you. No, I can understand the constraints put upon an architect, a developer, a homeowner, with regards to building code issues, zoning code issues, the fire code, and so those would all essentially limit development of where, location, whatnot. Now, my question being, in terms of the site planning, I guess you have a lot of the mass
Yes.
that runs parallel to the street you're building out, and actually there's a I'm not sure if we can take a look on the aerial image, Milka, or on the street view. There's kind of a gully. The highest portion, it sort of
Yes.
rises this way. You have your oak trees here, and it rises this way. So you sort of cut into the hillside in this direction. I guess, was there a study done in terms of
Yes.
actually having the house elongated and built into the gully as
Yeah.
opposed to cutting the hillside?
If we push the house further back into the property, then we'll run in a higher hill here and here, which then the retaining wall here, instead of being 15 feet, will go up to 20 feet, more than 20 feet. Because further we go inside the property, that means we are going more into the slope. That is the reason that I understand your concern is challenging to try to avoid this hill here, but if we don't do that, we have to see this wall that goes in an angle. It's because of the contours of the lot goes in this direction, and if we push this further back, then the height of this retaining wall will not be according to the requirements of the zoning code.
I can understand that your client, the property owner, would want a larger flat backyard behind his property. Does the building code allow a building wall to be used as the retaining wall, as the foundation?
I don't understand that question. The zoning requirement is this maximum height of this wall is 50.
Correct. And I guess my question would be is that if the building was built into the hillside and a deck was not provided at the rear, but that the
Oh.
building wall becomes
Yes.
the retaining wall.
Yes. There has to be minimum 15-foot distance between the house and the retaining wall.
I guess my question would be, if there's no retaining wall, if there's no deck, can the rear wall of the building be used?
Well, yeah, now I understand your question. So what you are saying that if we push this wall and attach it to the back of the house.
Correct.
And leave that there.
Correct.
First of all, there is a danger of moisture coming from those walls into the house. That is not the most important issue. But the thing is that we have rooms here that they get the light from the back. So that those rooms will be eliminated. And that will eliminate maybe more than half of the house.
And the minimum setback would be 15 feet from the back of the house to the rear retaining walls?
Yes, this distance has to be minimum 15 feet.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I might have additional questions then as individuals come up to speak, so if you don't mind. But at this point in time, I have no further questions. So I have 2 speaker cards, though I see many more faces in the audience. Anyone else who wishes to come up and speak, you're welcome to submit a speaker card. But with that said, I would like to call up Mr. Brian Duran. And Mr. Duran, is this a letter from you? Will you be?
Yes.
Okay. I believe you probably will be mentioning this then in your presentation.
I'll refer to it, yes.
Okay, thank you. And
My
yours?
name is Brian Duran. I'm here representing the Chevy Chase Estates Association, which is an interested party in any development in the canyon. Good morning.
Good morning.
Our primary objection to this development has to do with the visual component that is a result of the size and the upslope placement on this street. It's a small street. Several years ago at 2901 Greenwich, there was a similar development that was ultimately denied because of the massing of the house and because of its location in that wooded hillside area that did not fit the character of the place. With regard to the specific considerations of the mitigated declaration dealing with environmental factors, we believe that the aesthetics of the area would be compromised mainly because the existing character of the surroundings would not be enhanced or regulated by this structure because of the size of it, essentially. It's the usual thing that we're objecting to. If something looks too different in the area, then it can be found objectionable. We also see immediately that the CUP is having to overcome the fact that the hillside ordinance requires, it's regulated by 50% slope, and this is 70 to 77%, and also the movement of earth, 3,500 cubic yards, way over the maximum that is supposed to be allowed. This is not uncommon for what we've seen with Mr. Hagobian's projects, where he goes to build in a hillside and essentially tries to make it a flat pad by moving excess amounts of earth. We object to this in general, and it's a continuing characteristic that we see in these kinds of plans. This kind of movement of earth requires enormous retaining walls. It would seem logical that there would be very large retaining walls, and we think that that would also affect the aesthetics of what we find on the street. Also, as you may see through the record, we've been trying for years to get a different floor area ratio regulating this type of building, and I've noted in the letter that we've done an examination. We commissioned engineers to review LA and Glendale floor area ratios, and we find that the LA regulations more correctly limit this kind of building in hillside areas and encourage Glendale to adopt similar regulations. One thing that we think would be significant to the environment also, even though this would be temporary, is the significance in noise and traffic that have to do with this kind of a project on a narrow mountain road. It's difficult if you drive a car up there to get the car up and turn it around. With very large dump trucks, we think there has to be some kind of accommodation for this. At minimum, there has to be very rigorous traffic control because it is a narrow road and it's up on the side of the hill. With all of that, we think that generally speaking, it's okay for developers to develop for owners here, but when it goes beyond the regulations that the hillside ordinance already has in place, we have a general objection, and the specific objections I've noted with regard to environmental factors we'd like to put on record, and hopefully the letter that I've left with you today will go into the record.
Okay. Yes, it will. So, and this is the letter addressed to Ms. Milka Toledo and signed by Brian Duran on behalf of the Chevy Chase Estates Association. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. So
We just need to get it date stamped.
exactly. So,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before I call up the next speaker, just to confirm, Ms. Toledo, this property is zoned R1R, floor area district 2, which would allow a floor area ratio of,
It's actually,
0.4.
it would allow 0.4, but however, because the average current slope is greater than 40%, it actually is lower. It drops down to 0.30 for the first 10,000 square feet, and then 0.10 for each square footage of lot thereafter. So roughly, it would put them at, based on the size of the lot of being 10,903, it'd put them roughly at 3,090 square feet total max FAR.
okay, and they're proposing a home with an overall square footage of?
1,028 square feet.
Okay. Okay, so just under the floor area ratio maximum. Okay. Ms. Toledo, I believe that there's a neighborhood survey that was submitted.
Yes, I don't have it in front of me, but I
Okay.
believe it's in the file.
If you don't mind, yeah, taking a look to see what the average house size, and then also with the, I believe here it is, so, and the square footage of the home. Okay. Thank you. Meanwhile, I'll call up the next speaker, Ms. Palma Vincenti.
Good morning,
Good morning.
and thank you for letting me voice my opinion. Actually, I'm voicing my opinion for my husband, John Vincenti, and myself.
Okay. And your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, 3365 Figueroa Street. We live nearby in the neighborhood, but I'm extremely concerned about another development going into Chevy Chase Canyon that is asking again for a really very large change in the original hillside ordinance, another exception to the rule. And I remember having a very long talk with your now retired head planner, Wolfgang Kraus, who explained to me that years and years and years, hundreds and thousands of hours of material and information went into putting together the hillside ordinance in the very first place. And these were like an assessment of a lot of material, including accidents that happened, reasons why you've put up these particular boundaries. And over and over and over again in Chevy Chase Canyon, the developers who come in keep asking the city to change that. And I think that maybe you should get together and really completely revamp the hillside ordinance so that there aren't always so many exceptions to the rule. And if the rule came up to be 50% of a grade on the hill, and this one is a vast difference at 77%, and this seems to be consistent, that developers, particularly Mr. Hagopian, over and over and over again in the same area in Chevy Chase Canyon, keep asking the city to make exceptions to the rule. John and I are extremely concerned about safety in the canyon. That's our primary concern. And today in driving up there, and I've been on that street several times before, but my concern is that I drive a very tiny little two-seater car, and it was almost impossible for me to turn my car around on that tiny mountain road. So I'm asking you to really consider making another exception to the hillside ordinance so that something that shouldn't be built is built, and thinking about all those tons of dirt that need to come down, how a dump truck is going to be able to turn around on that road, how people who live there are going to get there, and in a worst case scenario, right in the middle of probably the worst fire season that Chevy Chase Canyon has experienced in a long, long time. Should a fire occur during construction there, how in the world you're going to get fire trucks up to that area? Thank you for letting me speak.
Ms. Vincetti. And also, just to clarify, this isn't an exception. An exception would be a standards variance, and this is for a conditional use permit. So it surpassed the threshold for...
I know it triggers.
Exactly.
Okay,
So.
it triggers an investigation. But
Exactly.
isn't this also for a variance because of the exceedingly large amount of dirt that's going to be removed?
At this point, no. This is for a conditional use permit because it passed the threshold of 1,500 cubic yards,
Okay.
and because the slope is greater than 50%.
But
So-
still, getting it out on that particular road, I think, is going to be very questionable and dangerous.
Okay,
Thank you.
but thank you for coming out to speak. So, Toledo?
The only thing I was not able to find was the map that corresponds. But to answer your question, there are at least 5 properties which have no address because they're vacant. The square footage of the lot would be 8,192 for one of them, square feet. Another vacant lot at 16,275 square feet. And another one, 9,684 and 13,222. And one last one at 7,039 square feet.
I'm sorry, are those the lot sizes or the home
Those
sizes?
are lot sizes for vacant lots.
Okay,
And
and-
now I'm going to go into homes.
I don't think you need to go in through.
Okay. What would you like me to review and have on record?
Perhaps just the average. So the average and the
okay.
smallest home and the largest home. That way we can
Perfect.
gain a...
So the smallest home that he has noted is 1,774 square feet. And the largest home noted in here is 3,422 square feet. Average being 2,355 square feet for those 12 listed properties.
Okay, thank you. That was the information that I was looking for.
Sorry about that.
So, okay. Mr. Agobian, you have a rebuttal period, I believe, of 5 minutes?
Yes, there is, in the 300-foot linear distance from this house, there are 2 houses, as one of them already Milka said about the size of the house, which is 3,000 422. The other one is 3,211 square foot. Is it possible, Milka, to read the floor area ratio, highest and lowest in that 300 foot?
Sure. So the floor ratios that you've noted,
Yes.
the only thing is that if you recall percentages,
Percentage of the floor
okay,
area
but
ratio.
floor area ratio in the R1R and those districts are based on, for example, 0.30 for the first 10,000 square feet, 0.10 for each square footage of lot thereafter. So the home at, well, you wanted the lowest. The lowest you've noted is 18.95 FAR, and the highest noted is 48.6.
48.6 floor area ratio.
Okay. Yeah, that
But I don't,
I don't want to get into discussion, but that we know that the maximum is 45 in this particular zone, so that might have been an anomaly with the standards variance.
Well,
So,
that
but
maybe
please.
it has been built years ago before this code
Correct.
of 45% was established.
Correct.
Regarding the traffic, well, anybody who builds a house, there's a traffic there. In this narrow street, the others have built a house, same problem. But at least in this case, we have a driveway. As soon as they start to dig the driveway, which is more than 20 feet deep, plus the depth of the garage, which is another 20 feet, there will be some space for the cars to come and park and load and go. But as I said, anytime there's a construction, there will be some noise, some traffic, and that's understandable. And by the way, sometimes it happens that people come here and complain, and they themselves have violated somehow the code. I believe, if I am not wrong, the lady that complains, I think they are encroaching into that Linda Vista property with apparently, I have to confirm this, I'm not sure, but as far as I know, there is an encroachment into the property with the wall and swimming pool. I'm not saying that since somebody else did something wrong and we can do something wrong. No, that's not the case. But the conditional use permit is for every case to see how that property and design of the house, how it works with that property. To make it smaller doesn't solve some of the issues. Sometimes even it creates problem and it's not big enough to cover the retaining wall on the back and things like that. However, if a fire happens, this house will have a fire sprinkler system. Most probably the other houses in that neighborhood, they don't have it. And if unfortunately, if just in case a fire happened in a house, in that neighborhood, that problem is there. I don't know how the truck will be there. I hope the truck can go there anyway. But at least this house will have a landscaping that is sprinklered, a house with fire sprinklers installed. Beyond that, now any time it rains, there is no control for the rain water that comes down. At least when this house is built, we'll have an engineered drainage system, and it will be upgraded, in fact, by constructing this house by the kind of landscaping that is designed and controlled. So that's all I can say about this as a rewatering. And I didn't appreciate that they say my name, that Hagobian is doing this, doing that in city of Glendale. We have done a lot of good works in the city. And some people that objected to that, eventually when they come and see the result of after being constructed, even they send a letter to me or they call and leave a message for me appreciating what we have done. And I hope this is one of those things that, yes, our grading is 1,000 cubic yard more than the requirement, but this is what this property is. if you want to build a house, you have to have some kind of concessions in this kind of situations.
If you don't mind wrapping up your thoughts, please.
That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that said, I will close this case and take it under submission and render a decision. Again, all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the decision date on the letter. So if you spoke today or have submitted correspondence, you will be receiving a copy of the decision letter. Thank you to everyone who attended today's hearing, and the planning hearing officers meeting is adjourned. Thank you.